we should first hear the question, what is oral literature, as suggesting rather, when and how did oral literature become an object of discourse? And to that, I have an answer, the curious history I promised you. Presumably, oral literature goes back as far as language. Oral literature becomes something that people write about at moments when their written culture bumps up against a non-written culture that for some reason impresses or frustrates it. You wouldn't find a lot of attention given in ancient Greek and Roman texts to the fact that the villagers of Boeotia don't spend their evenings curled up with a good book. The illiteracy of the peasantry is absolutely taken for granted. The relative literacy of urban dwellers in the ancient world does get some ancient attention, usually when somebody has a complaint about it. The following text from Julius Caesar's narration of the Gallic Wars is exceptional, and I will linger over it for a while. Caesar says in Book 6, the lore, he uses the word disciplina, of the Druids is thought to have been transmitted to Gaul from Britain, where it originated. Those who most eagerly wish to acquire it go there for the sake of study. There they are said to learn by heart a great number of verses, and not a few of them spend up to 20 years in study. Nor is it considered in keeping with divine law to commit these verses to writing, though the Gauls use Greek letters for almost all other kinds of public or private business. It seems to me, says Caesar continuing, this is the only place where he says me in the Gallic Wars, by the way, it seems to me that this rule was established for two reasons. One, that they did not wish this lore to be acquired by ordinary people, and two, that they did not wish the learners to rely on letters and therefore apply themselves less strenuously to memorizing, as generally happens to those who, through the help of writing, lose their facility of learning and their memory. Thus far, Caesar. Okay, so the Gauls possessed a vast and complex body of knowledge about the gods, the soul, cosmology, and geography. Many of their youth spend up to 20 years acquiring it by memorizing a vast number of verses. Up to this point, the Gauls' system of education sounds like that of well-born Romans. A grounding in the poetic corpus constituting what Havelock would call their tribal encyclopedia, a progression to more speculative areas of knowledge, and a period of study abroad. Homer, Plato, Athens, right? You recognize the stages. Caesar's imaginary hearer must be impressed by the figure of 20 years for a well-rounded Gaulish education. The first word of the next sentence, which begins, neque fas esse existimant, responds to possible objections in the previous sentence. Not only do they spend 20 years in education, that's your first surprise, but they don't even use writing for their voluminous sacred teaching. Second surprise. And the word fas, used by Caesar, suggests a divine or ritual prohibition, as if the hearer is amazed and saying, how can that be? And Caesar answers by raising the seriousness of the prohibition. Caesar then, using the first person, as I said, for the only time in the Gallic Wars, ventures two explanations. The Gauls forbade writing their wisdom down to keep it from falling in the hands of the undeserving, or to protect their memories from writing-initiated decay. Both these justifications are drawn from Plato's Phaedrus, the dialogue where Socrates dismisses writing as a shortcut to wisdom. The analogy Caesar makes here is quite the compliment to the Gauls. Right? They are not just strange people who paint themselves blue and live in the woods, but they have a culture that is the equivalent of the most refined culture that a Roman could imagine. So here we have a division in two parts, as Caesar would say, of the field of information among the Gauls. Everyday business, where writing is permitted, and the realm of the sacred, where it is forbidden to use writing. Oral tradition is marked out by this interdiction as the field of greater value. Unlike the failure to write, which could be ascribed to any barbarians, and of course was again and again, the Druids' refusal to write puts their learning among mysteries that Caesar's page or any page cannot contain. The reason for lingering on this passage is that Caesar here imagines, in writing, a culture in which writing is not the normative member of the pair writing orality. It's usually the other way around. This surprising statement coming from a writing man would not often be echoed in the following 1800 years.